Small crowd tonight.
It's my favorite thing. I no longer have to say that. Well, everybody, welcome to Beers with Bill. It's my pleasure tonight to welcome Troy Baxter from Badlands. Troy, welcome to Beers with Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Which beer are we going to start with tonight, Troy?
I was thinking we start with the pale ale. Start on the lower end and work our way up.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about this one.
So it's distorted.
Yep.
It's considered, or at least what I consider, our house pale ale. It's one of the oldest recipes I have. It's one of kind of like it actually started out life as my original hoppy beer like recipe that I homebrewed, and this is just kind of what it evolved into when we started the brewery. But yeah, I mean, everything about it, it's one of my favorite beers. It drinks above its weight class, I think, for alcohol content. Like it really drinks like an IPA, but is dressed up as like a pale ale. So it's 5.5%. You can have a couple of them. We do hop it at the exact same rate as all of our hoppy beers, which is to say quite a lot. And yeah, it's a tough beer to make, honestly. It took me a few cracks at it on the new system here to get it kind of back in balance, but I'm pretty happy with this batch. It's hard to put that many hops into a beer at a lower ABV and keep it from being astringent and still have body and nice like aromatics. So yeah, this one's always been one of my favorites, and it's one of my oldest recipes. So it's got some nostalgia, and I've changed very little about it. So it's actually held up quite well for, oh man, it's got to be a 7-year-old recipe now, like 26-year-old. So like I guess the first time I made this would have been probably 2015. Wow.
So I do have to ask before I go into anything else. You've changed the equipment that you started out on, have you not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We started out on like a really small 120 liter-ish brew house. It really is like it's home brewing equipment. Like we bought it from Spike Brewing, which is
I'm sorry, Troy, I muted you instead of my son.
There we go. Now we're good. When did I cut out? No, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, we brew on a new system now, so it's quite a lot larger. It's like a real brewery, for maybe lack of a better way of putting it. It's a bit of a I designed like a custom system for ourselves that was really based around brewing IPA, since it's overwhelmingly what we produce. So it has an oversized mash tun, an oversized kettle. We have an oversized heat exchanger so that can really cool the beer down quickly after those big heavy whirlpools. Our dish bottom has basically more space to eat like the obscene hop loads that go in there. The oversized kettle lets us actually still get a yield to our tank because we lose like a couple 100 liters of beer from the kettle to our fermenters now, which is ironic. We effectively dump more beer than we used to make per batch of hop sludge in hop losses nowadays, every beer we make. But yeah, roughly speaking, it's a similar system to the one we had, where it's still a 3-vessel system. It's steam instead of electric. But yeah, it just took a little bit of time to get kind of used to brewing on it. And we had to make some adjustments too. Our efficiency improved quite a lot. And with that, our grain bill got a little bit smaller, and then our water chemistry changed, the protein content in the beer changed, our haze stability changed. So just a lot of different components about the beer changed really early on, and we just kind of had to go back to the drawing board and not be so attached to the way we were doing things on the old system, and just kind of trust our palates and rebuild the beer in the direction we wanted it to go. And it's taken honestly a really long time, especially for the lower ABV beers. Our doubles were a lot quicker to kind of get back to where we wanted them. Alcohol helps a lot with that. High alcohol beers they naturally have more to them. They're better at extracting hop character. They're just honestly, they're just easier to get into spec. And that was thankfully easier than getting our pale ales and our IPAs to be where we want, where I'm happy with where they're at now, but there's still some tweaking to be done for me to be even where I think we were when we switched systems at this point.
I think that's sort of the evolution too. You'll tweak a beer almost all the time.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, in my opinion, there is no such thing as a final recipe. There's usually just there's baseline I like to work off of, and then from there, we'll typically very carefully work through kind of like our Dora series or our Mingle series or our monthly double IPA series. And we'll selectively choose pieces of the process or certain ingredients, and one piece at a time, make a tweak, evaluate the difference. And then if we're really happy with it, maybe implement it somewhere else to kind of confirm we like it. And if we like something enough, then we'll actually potentially roll that into our entire lineup. But we're kind of slow in that sense, that for us to implement changes to the beer, we could be changing everything all the time, but for me, it takes, anytime I make a tweak to the beer, it takes almost 2 months for us to, from brew day to final assessment, actually make that assessment. So, if I try something, I don't know, if I tried something on brew day next week, it'll be almost next year by the time I'm all right, cool, let's roll that into our lineup. I'm confident it's going to work. And that's just, I don't know, for me, as much as it's fun to try things, we don't want to also just try things to try things. It's always in the pursuit of making better beer. And experimentation for the sake of experimentation can be cool, but that's what the pilot system, which is our old brew house, is for, to be honest, where it's if I need to dump it, it's it's going to go. Otherwise, I want to make sure the beer is always going to turn out. And we're just trying to make the beer better piece by piece so that you may not notice it as we get there, but hopefully, every now and then, hopefully a few times a year, you'll drink a beer and be wow, I think this one's better than it used to be. And that's what we're kind of always driving at, is these little tweaks that maybe one day add up to a greater sum than the parts that we're tweaking.
Ed, I don't even have to ask you how difficult that change was, because we've got it all. Andrew's curious. What made you go to a steam heated system?
So one thing is the size of the brewery. At a certain scale, heating with anything other than steam starts to have a bunch of problems. So really, once you get into bigger breweries, you only have 3 ways to do it: electric, direct fire, or steam. Electric, I mean, we're on a farm service, so we wouldn't even have the electrical capabilities of heating a kettle our size with our electrical supply. So yeah, that's just never going to happen for us. Direct fire is possible, but once you get to, in my opinion, anything over 10 barrels, so somewhere in the 1,200 liter range, you're starting to ask for problems with scorching. So direct fire is essentially when you think of kind of a barbecue or even your stove, you're just heating the bottom and it's just blasting tons of heat, literally fire from burners at the bottom of a pot. So it's pretty inefficient. You're losing a ton of heat, and ultimately that bottom portion is just going to burn the beer. Which it's, if you're making only stouts or something, that could actually potentially be desirable. You might get more caramelization flavor or something like that. That could be actually pretty cool for Maillard reactions. But in our case, that's not what I'm going for in our IPAs by any means. And when it comes to steam, it's incredibly efficient. Steam runs at 300 and something degrees through the jackets. It heats evenly all the way around the kettle. And then the size of the kettle is 3,000 liters as well. So For us to have direct fire, it would just be a scorchy mess. So that's why we went with steam. It is more expensive up front, but after you get it installed, it's quite efficient to run. Like for us to do a month of brewing is like $300 of utilities. Like it's actually cheaper to run than our old brew house, which was electric.
I was just thinking that at $300, that would have been lower than any hydro bill you ever had.
100%. I mean, the delivery fee is like $70, right? So
yeah. Derek is curious, which two beers would best exemplify Badlands IPA and Badlands Double IPA?
For IPA, I'd say for sure Through the Glass. That's always been our house IPA. I'm actually getting it on Monday. I'm pretty excited to bring it back. Yeah, it's always been one that I've pointed to as like, this is what we do. And it doesn't get as much necessarily like as much love as some of our other beers, but because it's just been around so long. But it's Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe, and the three hops together are just, they're great. Like they work nice together. And I've always had a special place in my heart for that beer. Double IPA, it's a little bit trickier. When we can get the right lots of Galaxy, I would say Berry and Mary, which I consider like our house double IPA. Our Galaxy the last little while has been pretty good, so I probably should make that beer again soon. Otherwise, my original like vision for Berry and Mary was actually Cedscape, which we've just released for the first time and we're tasting later. Because that blend of hops, I put it right on the label. It's arguably my favorite. It's basically my favorite hops from the three kind of like prominent growing regions for IPA hops. Citra being, the GOAT, Galaxy being, a great Aussie hop, and then Nelson. Like Nelson is, probably like my second favorite hop. Like I really, really, really like Nelson. We go deep on that with our contracts. So yeah, maybe Cedscape. I don't know. It's tough to say.
And just to elaborate on that, Bill, before you cut me off, does that kind of encompass the body you're going for as well? Like when you think of a Badlands IPA, like there's certain creaminess, cloudiness. Would those two beers also be kind of like you nailed it with those ones basically?
Yeah, I think so. Cedscape is, in my opinion, better than the last batch of Berry and Mary, just because they're so far apart that our our beer is just improved since the last time that as a whole, our entire lineup I think has gotten better, just as our processes and everything have just gotten more and more dialed in. But generally speaking, yeah, I'd say those base recipes are pretty much exactly what we're driving at when it comes to IPA and double IPA, where for us, what we're always trying to hit is, for an IPA, it's I really want it to drink like a double essentially, but I don't ever want it to be sweet and drink. I'm really looking for creamy, but fluffy. I don't want it to be heavy on the palate. I want to make sure there's bitterness, but I don't want it to take away from the actual drinking experience. It's the bitterness is just there to hopefully carry that heavier body across your palate. And then when it comes to doubles, we kind of actually go the other route, where instead of, taking a double and I want to make it drink like a triple, which I'll be frank, I don't want that. I want our doubles to drink like doubles. So we actually keep the body of our doubles a tiny bit, we turn it down a touch compared to what we do for our IPAs. We soften up our water chemistry a little bit more as well. Whereas our lower ABV stuff, we take the water chemistry higher up to, again, kind of match what you would see in a double IPA, which is kind of how we trick our palates into thinking when you're drinking a pale ale that it's something more than it is, alcohol wise at least. But yeah, for our doubles, it's the same thing. Most people don't necessarily realize when you drink our beer, but our double IPAs are actually quite well bittered on the hot side. Because if they're 2 weeks old, and in my opinion, if there hasn't been a really good, clean, 60-minute edition, they get flabby. And then for me, I don't really like drinking them anymore. And I want our beers to be good on day one, but I still want them to be really solid on, day 30. And there's been some of our doubles I've had on day 60 that I've been still absolutely thrilled with. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question that good.
Hey, I think you've got that question for him. What's the second beer we're going to be trying tonight?
Let's do we'll do one of the doubles first, I guess. We'll do we were talking about Cedscape, so let's do Cedscape.
Okay.
I'm gonna grab it. It's always good to have the beer that I'm going to talk about. It helps. Yep. Yeah, no, that beer for me, it works out. I'm happy with it. So Cedscape is just one of our newer double IPAs. Just released, I guess it would be a week and a bit ago. So this was one of the first double IPAs I wanted to release as a brewery. But when we first started, access to hops was challenging. Even when we first opened, like Citra was tough to get. And then eventually we got Citra, but I still couldn't get Galaxy or Nelson. And then by 2019, I was able to get Galaxy, but I wasn't super thrilled with the quality of it. So then honestly, with only in the last 2 years, we finally started getting good Galaxy. And then about a year ago, we really finally got good Nelson as well. So for us, we just literally could not make this beer until about a year ago. So I'm happy that we're finally able to actually execute this. And then also we have contracts in place so that we can continue to execute it because I love these hops and we use them all over our lineup, as I'm sure you guys have noticed. So we're excited to be able to actually make this more often than once every 5 years.
I hear you. So it took you a while to get the proper contracts in place for the hops.
Yeah, it's challenging, especially because we started so small, right? Because we started as the tiniest brewery, our hop contracts were not very big. We weren't movers and shakers in the contracting world. And honestly, we still aren't. We're still, we use a lot more hops than our volume would necessarily indicate, just because we use so much per liter. So we strike above our kind of whatever contract weight there a little bit. But until this year, our contracts were so small that we really weren't even allowed to contract directly with suppliers. So we just hit that threshold this year by partnering with Blood Brothers and Third Moon. So we're all splitting a regional contract so that we can select on just a whole whack of hops this year. So all three of us breweries are going out in 2 weeks from now to go select hops. So we're looking forward to that.
That'll be fantastic. What a wonderful opportunity.
Oh yeah, no, I think we're all pretty excited because it's one of those things that no question, hops define all of our breweries at this point. And to finally be able to actually sit down and choose what we use, the literal kind of focus of the beer is pretty exciting. It may not make a difference again, starting even next year. But it's one of those kind of long-term things that we want to plan to dial in where every year you select, you get a chance essentially to record data, record sensory information, take notes of what lots you sampled and then what you actually chose. And if you're happy with it, then you can start to kind of build the database for you to refer to year after year after year. And ultimately, we kind of just hope that eventually we're able to dial in not only exceptional lots of hops, but some unique ones too. So one of my main kind of like drive for wanting to do hop selection is a lot of beers taste the same. Like we're all using the same ingredients from the same place. A lot of people are using the same production techniques, the exact same yeast strains. So like we've slowly moved away from doing a lot of things that, maybe were normal a while ago, but aren't anymore. And one of those things that we're now hoping to be able to kind of once again like dial in as like something that could be unique to us would be being able to select cool lots of hops. So like when we're picking Citra, like I'd love to be able to pick, I don't know, something that's like, we all know it as mostly like a citrusy, maybe a little bit dank at times like hop, but like if we can pick something that's in that like candied papaya side of that hop, like for me, that's what Citra at least used to be. So it'd be cool if we could find a lot like that and then dial it in. And then we, and like 2 other breweries that we partnered with would have access to that. And it would be different from what you really would typically be tasting in Ontario beer.
So besides the changes to being able to now select your hops, what's going to be next for Badlands?
So the big thing for us right now is that we are finally starting to regularly release a lager. So we had the Ontario Pils come out like, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. And then we'll have like a Czech style Pils coming out within the next couple weeks. And yeah, I mean, I literally bought a tank specifically to always have a lager coming out every like 8-ish weeks. So that'll be coming. We have a bunch of barrel-aged stouts in barrels right now. So they'll be coming at some point, theoretically. I'll be honest, I haven't tasted them at all yet, but I'm assuming one of the like 16 barrels that are full is going to be good. So there should be a stout release at some point this winter. They're coming up on like 8 months in barrels. So they're getting to that point now where they should theoretically be starting to hit their stride. And we'll take a look at what barrels taste like what, and then make a blend. And then, we also have some mixed fermentation barrels going as well, but yeah, whether those turn out or not, it's slightly different project where like mixed fermentation for us has always been something I absolutely love. It's not a very hot selling beer by any means or beer style, but unless it's good, we're just not going to release it. It's one of those things that it may be a bit of a futility to keep turning over these barrels, but we're hoping to eventually be able to get something relatively consistent with mixed fermentation going as well, so that we can release once again, like maybe like 4 to 6 mixed fermentation beers a year would be great. So we're really just kind of like expanding our style portfolio finally, now that we've been able to catch up on IPA, which is it took us until like a month or 2 ago to catch up on IPA. So we like just started being able to brew something else because we finally have the tank space for it.
Been a long, challenging road, hasn't it?
Yeah, we chose to do it the dumb way, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's worked out well for us. I'm happy with where we've been able to get to. We have no investors. We have no, financial backers that we have to report to. It's just the 3 of us, and we make all the decisions when it comes to beer, when it comes to anything, how we spend our money, how we operate the business. All of it comes down to whatever we think is best, and that's one of those privileges that not every business can say they have. So we're pretty fortunate to be in that position, but definitely we've aged our bodies quite a lot getting there. So
Challenges of being a small business owner.
yeah, I mean, we're these days maybe only working like 80-90 hours a week, unless it's a busy week. But for about 2 years in a row there at the end, just as we were moving over to the new brew house, so from like 2019 to September 2020-ish, about 18 months, I was averaging like 115 hours a week brewing 4 to 6 times a week, still working a day job. I'd work my day job from like 5 to 2. I'd come home and I would brew till 8 or 9 p.m. and then work all day Saturday and Sunday. And yeah, it definitely aged me a bit. So that's what you got to do though to pay the bills when you're not rich.
I hear you. What's been the hardest hurdle over the last 18 months?
I mean, it's honestly, it's always money. Whether it's 18 months or even when, whatever, 20 months, 30 months, 40 months ago, it's always just been money's always been the problem. Some businesses start with a lot of financing. We started with none. Like literally none. I was 24 when we started the business. Like we started the whole brewery for $70,000. So it's just, we did not have any money to start the business. We didn't have any money to really like grow the business. And it all just came from essentially bootstrapping and then reinvesting our day job money again and again. And in the last 18 months, it's kind of been the same thing, just now at a bit of a larger scale where, I don't have a day job anymore. So I don't have any money to reinvest anymore. So we're kind of like, we're locked into the amount that we can make as a business. But still all the money we're, making is pretty much spent before we actually make it. For a long time. So money is always the challenge. I'm sure it probably always will be. And I think probably that's the case for a lot of businesses.
You're ruining that romance about being a brewery owner.
You know what? There's lots of good things about it. But at the end of the day, owning a business is one of those things. I think I forget who I heard say it at one point, but it's like they said it's like the most overrated thing, owning a business. It sounds like this like dreamy, be your own boss, whatever. But in reality, what it means is doing all the shittiest jobs, working crazy hours, not getting to see family and friends as much as you want, having no money, and then also being your own boss. It's like a side benefit. But I mean, there is a lot to like about it. People give us their beer from other breweries, which is pretty cool. So my beer bill has dropped a lot since owning a brewery. That's one of the coolest things. And I mean, I absolutely love brewing. Like there's just no question about it. I'd be doing this whether I own the brewery or not, which is why I started the brewery as a home brew system. Is I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm already brewing, once or twice a week anyways. I'll just buy this system that I'm going to buy anyways, and just get a license and start selling it. And it ended up snowballing into something a little bit bigger, which was a good thing, but also more challenging than I ever expected. And that's why I always tell people the same thing that I was told: do not start a 1-barrel brewery. It's not a good idea.
I hear you. Derek is curious if you're going to expand the hop subscription to include the mixed fermentation and the lagers.
I'm not sure. I mean, certainly any like hoppy beer subscriber will be able to add that to their order. So they'll, if they're getting their weekly order, like most subscribers know, like Derek, that you can add more beer to that subscription every week, no extra shipping costs. So whenever we do release lagers or mixed fermentation beers, you can add them. But as far as actually like having like a specific lager or mixed fermentation subscription, I'm not sure. Probably not for lagers. The mixed fermentation stuff, I've definitely thought about it, but I don't think it's fair to do a subscription until we have a steady stream of beer that I think actually merits someone forking out, whatever amount of money, up front, so that they can receive a product that like they can reasonably expect will be excellent every time. So until I at least feel like we have a good handle on, our mixed culture program, I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing a subscription, to be honest. And then the lagers, probably we won't be making enough of them to have a subscription. So I don't know. Yeah, but at least they'll be able to be added. That's for sure.
What's the third beer we're going to try?
Third beer, move on to Fog. So Fog, this is actually the first beer I made while on the, I guess, professionally, so to speak. It was the very, very first beer I brewed on that brew house. It was a complete disaster. We built like almost everything in that brewery. So naturally, most of it broke and just didn't work that well. At that point, like we still didn't even have a table. Like I brewed on the floor with the pots. We didn't have a hood fan, so it was just like a sweaty mess in there still. We still didn't have a door, so it was just a piece of plywood over the door for the whole brew day. So anyways, it didn't go great. Our Glycol Loop failed in like the heat of June. Fermentation got way out of whack. So we ended up not releasing this beer, but it was tentatively named at that point Fog. And the recipe is almost identical other than like the process changes. But yeah, literally everything went wrong with this beer. Like even when we went to dry hop, I went to pour, or actually I had Grace help me. We went to pour like hops into the dry hop port, and we were just like angling it in because we had to weigh them out. And it was like in this like plastic bucket basically. And she like bent it too much. And then all of the bucket broke, all the hops went everywhere. So like, this is the first time we've ever bought hops in any quantity, and now they're on the floor, wasted. So then I had to go back, get another entire use of hops, weighed out again. So the cost of the beer got high. Then we ended up dumping it. Ended up dumping another couple beers after that before we released it. But anyways, now it tastes good. I'm happy with it. It's one of the only beers we make that has Equinaut in it. It's an interesting hop, but it only works in so many ways, in my opinion. So I like to use it like this, just as kind of like a nice accent hop. It can kind of bring some like cool like lime, even like a borderline like resin black pepper, or not black pepper, sorry, like bell pepper like background note when it's really fresh, but then it'll tail off into more of like a tropical thing. Yeah, it's a tough hop to use, but it is pretty cool. So that's why we don't use it a lot, but I do like it in this beer.
It's a little bit of a dialogue going off on the chat line about the name Badlands.
Yeah. So we're the Cheltenham Badlands, not those big ones in Calgary, or not Calgary, sorry, Alberta. Ours is like, it's just clay deposits, just basically one block up from us. And they're cool. It looks like the surface of Mars. Very, very pretty. But yeah, not nearly as epic as the Alberta ones.
That helped you choose the name for the brewery?
Yeah, I mean, we struggled real hard with what to name the brewery, to be honest. That was the only name that we didn't hate. So that's what we chose. And then we actually almost lost it. So we'll be telling that story soon, because we finally own the rights to the name Badlands, which that was a close call. But I don't want to spoil it yet. We have a whole beer built around how we almost lost our name. So we'll yeah, it should be coming out within the next few months now that we actually have the trademark for it.
I'm looking forward to hearing that whole story.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, it was a bad scenario got bad.
How do you decide what beers to brew?
I mean, it kind of varies. Some of it is just like what I'm in the mood for. Like me coming from home brewing, it's not really the same for all brewers. Like some brewers don't really like to drink their own beer because they find it work. I came from like the hobby side. So like, I just genuinely, I like my own beer because I used to do it for fun. So I'm a little bit selfish in that sense, where sometimes I will simply brew beers that I'm in the mood for. Like one day I'll wake up and I'm like doing my schedule and I'm like, you know what beer I haven't had in a while? Elevate. I want Elevate. Let's get that in the schedule. Like, I need some Sabro in my life. And, you know, I'm not gonna lie, like half of the beers I choose to make or bring back, that's usually how I decide. I'm just in the mood to have that around. So like, let's do it. And then other than that, like when we're actually doing like creating new recipes, it can kind of vary pretty dramatically how we get there. So like it can be as simple as there's a new ingredient, a new hop, maybe a new lot of hops. Who knows? I look at, smell, taste in the beer, and then I'm like, cool, I'm gonna build back or build off that one. Other times I'll just straight up like look at what hops I have, and then all of a sudden kind of play the puzzle game where you're like, what ones of these I think are gonna work well together. And that's actually like a pretty fun way to make beer too, especially if you have like contracts, for example, where you have like consistent lots of the same hops. So you're not always changing them because they do change quite a lot year to year. So if you know, I don't know, like you're halfway into your lot of hops for the year for everything, you know what your Mosaic tastes like, you know what your Citra tastes like, you know what, I don't know, your Idaho 7 tastes like, you know, like all these hops, depending on how they taste that year, there are certain blends that are going to taste better that year that wouldn't taste good other years. Like right now, I absolutely love the Idaho 7 we have. So I've been plugging it in kind of like all over the place. It's going into the next monthly DIPA as well. Whereas in other years, it's just not quite as good. Like this year, it tastes really like ruby red grapefruity, and just like almost orangey. In other years, it can be like black tea, and when it's black tea, I just don't use it. So right now, when it tastes the way it does, for example, I'll go into the cold room, and instead of looking at it and going black tea, I'll like look at a box of Idaho 7 and be like, ooh, all right, I see ruby red grapefruit. And then I'll look at something like Nelson. I'm like, all right, I got gooseberry. And I'll look at like Rawaka, and I'm like, that's like a dank, like almost earthy berry. And I'm like, yep, I think those 3 flavor profiles are going to work out. So sometimes it's as simple as that, just staring at a wall of hops and working with what ingredients you have on hand. Other times it's new and building a recipe back from that. And other times it's just me being selfish and being like, I know these recipes are some of the best ones I have, and I just want them.
But isn't that why you own your own brewery?
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah.
Eric's curious how far out you schedule.
So it varies a bit, but about 3 months out. So, just because of how busy we are, like we try to leave some room for like spontaneity, but for the most part, the way that, like we schedule is I'll just sit down and I'll plan out 3 months of beer. And then almost always within that 3 months, things will get moved around. So I might like pull something in or out, especially if we do a collab. Like I'll just cut a beer and then move it to the other end, basically. So it's like, I plan for 3 months, and it's like, we're going to do a collab with, you know, whatever brewery. It's like, cool. So we're going to cut that beer that I was going to make. And now we're planned for 3 months and a week out, basically. And then we're going to insert here type thing. Or if it's like, you know, I'll schedule like a Dora or something like that, but I won't actually design the recipe. I'll just get a label and then give myself essentially to the last minute to be like, okay, like, what do I want to do with this beer now that I'm approaching it? Like, I have to make something. Like, what do I want to test? What do I want to use? Like, whatever is kind of like, whatever itch needs to be scratched with regards to like learning about process or ingredients, like then I'll kind of do that as I get closer to that brew date. But yeah, we plan further out than most breweries that I know of. Not all of them, obviously. Like some plan for like a whole year, which is admirable, but I don't think I could plan that far out.
Who does the artwork for you?
So we have an artist. He's a buddy of ours. Lives in Ottawa. Super nice guy, and his name is Dom. He's no, the handle is Local Weirdo, and yeah, I mean he's awesome. He like something like Cedscape, for example. Like I'll tell him, I'm like, yeah, like just some guy I don't know, like in a forest or something, like shining a light on like fruits. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's like almost like looking at the stars, but the stars are fruits. And then he'll send us this. And I'm like, man, this guy has way better visions than me when I describe them to him. So it's good to work with him. He's able to turn my very shitty descriptions of what I'm looking for into like some legit art. So we're happy to have him.
What do you find that's new and exciting happening in the craft beer industry right now?
I mean, the just like the like I guess onset of like people like Mark, for example, from Princess being able to sell beer at their restaurant or whatever, and basically just be like a legitimate specialty beer bar. Yeah, I think is one of the more exciting developments in Ontario beer, like period, right? It's just it's changed how you can buy beer as a consumer, and it's still totally new, and a lot of people don't know it exists. But to finally be able to buy beer for consumption in a can, like at home, from somewhere that is not like a government-owned beer store, is a pretty cool and exciting new frontier, I guess, for beer that I think is only going to be a good thing moving forward.
Derek's curious, who writes the stories on the can?
That's me. Yeah, I write all the stories. I do all of the copy for the brewery. Yeah, I don't know. I did a lot of writing throughout my like academic career. Basically, I wrote essays for like 10 years is what I did. So I like to write. I'm a little bit out of practice these days. I'm not as good as I used to be, but yeah, sometimes I don't know. I think you might be onto some. Had a couple dippas and I have a funny idea and then I just write it down. I'll be honest, I cut like 90% of the ideas I have. But I do write down a lot of stuff and then I'll revisit them like with a fresh frame of mind and be like, is this okay? And even if it's like borderline, I'll still run it. Like something like Diamond Shoes. I don't know why, I don't know where I was feeling that day, but I was very happy with that write-up when I came back to it because I just laughed at it and I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna make this something for sure.
Terry and Emma posed an interesting question to you based on Kim Mitchell as a DJ doing a damn, I wish I'd wrote this. What beer, not Badlands beer, makes you say, damn, I wish I'd brewed that?
Oh, probably like like one of the, what's it called? It's like Everett from Hill Farmstead. Like their saisons, you can pretty much you can pretty much take any of their saisons and be like, wow, I wish I was able to do this. This is fucking amazing. Like, and I'll be honest, like I am absolutely incapable at the moment of making a mixed fermentation saison that good. Like I never do that. And that definitely is an impressive feat for them, not only to do it once, but to continually do it. Every time I have their beers, they're just so damn good.
Talk to me about your September Double IPA.
All right. So September Double IPA, it's our monthly DIPA series. So for me, this is one of my like favorite series of beers. I mean, I love Dora, Mingle's cool, but our monthly DIPA is something that I've wanted to do for quite a while. I mean, we've been doing it. This is like our second full year of doing it. So it's been going on a while, but what I like about it is it's again, a nice free like expression platform for me to do anything I want with double IPAs on a monthly basis. And then it also gave us a chance to build some cool like seasonally inspired labels that I also really wanted to do. So as far as that series go, I think it's probably my favorite series that we do. And then this particular version, at least of September, was Nelson Rawaka and Strata. and I'm pretty happy with it. Those hops worked really well together. That's one of those ones where, going back to like, how do you make beer? That's one where I just walked into the cold room and I was like, all right, what do I have on hand right now? And we just got our New Zealand hops. So Nelson and Rawaka, it's an absolute like all-star combo that I love putting those two hops together. And I'll be honest, I kind of forgot I had a bag of Strata, and I was like, oh man, Strata's been killing it lately, like in some of the beers I've been using, but I kind of forgot I had this one that I bought. And I was like, I'm going to put that in there, and really happy I did. It turned out really well. I'm super happy with it. I go back and forth between whether I like Cedscape or September more, depending on my mood. They're extremely different beers. This one's really got more of like what I can only describe as like that New Zealand hop character, where it's just got like, you smell it, it's got like this like dank like thiol thing going on, but then like it's tropical fruity, but it just has like that dank note, and I love it. I love New Zealand hops. Maybe not as much as Yakima, but close. It's close. Yeah, it works for me. I like this beer a lot.
Yes, that does work. Derek's curious how often a beer will graduate from Dora or a monthly double IPA to its own permanent label.
Extremely rarely. And even if they do graduate, they typically will get a little bit of tweaking as well. But one of the only ones that I can even think of that recently graduated was Fat Joe, which was like Dora 39 or something. At least like the rough base recipe. So that became the beer Fat Joe. But I'll be honest, like overwhelmingly for me, the Doras more often than not are what I would deem like a failure, which doesn't mean the beer is bad or anything like that. But for me, like typically I try something that's different from our normal process in those Doras. And often whatever I try, I find does not improve the beer. That being said, like that's why we move so slowly. So when I do something, it's not enough to like change the entire beer necessarily. But I essentially, because I know the variable, I'm able to evaluate it based on that variable. And if I find, it did or did not make the beer better, then I either will incorporate that into beers moving forward or not. And then every now and then, something like I made like Fat Joe, and I was like, damn. Well, sorry, I made Dora 39 or whatever it was. And I was like, damn, I really like this beer, like more than I expected. I will pull this one out. Or actually, sorry, Perspective. There you go. That's another one that we just released as well. That was like Dora number 1, I think. I'd have to go back and look. But that was a beer where we just put Citra and Columbus together, and it really made it worked out quite nice. I was really happy with that. So it was pretty fun to bring that one back. But yeah, I mean, we've made 40, we're on our 45th Dora. And off the top of my head, I can only think of 2. So not that many.
Who's your role model?
Probably in brewing. Like Sean Hill is the reason I started a brewery from Hill Farmstead. Had their beer in, I think it was 2014 when we were visiting New York, and had some hazy IPA. And I like to make the joke that Sean Hill ruined my life, made me start a brewery because his beer was so good. But yeah, I mean, I really just wanted to drink that type of beer. I was a cook, I worked in restaurants. I wasn't a very good cook, but anyways, I like to make things from scratch a lot. So for me, I was just like, I'll just make this beer then. I made some wine in university just for fun, like literally take Welch's and ferment it type thing. So this was just kind of like one of those natural extensions where I was like, I'll just make beer. And it sucked ass at first, but no one was making hazy IPAs. So like, it wasn't like I could scratch that itch. 2014 beer in Ontario, there was literally 0 hazy IPAs. And then, 2015 rolled around and there were still 0 hazy IPAs. So in 2015, I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to start my own brewery. And then it just took us 2 years to get it done. But even when we opened in 2017, it was just starting to catch on at that point with hazy IPA. Like I think that's the year Bellwoods officially went hazy, I think in the fall. And then the year after, shortly after, it was like Allura went hazy, and it was like, okay, things finally caught on. But yeah, I mean, it was the only way I could get that type of beer was to make it myself. So yeah, Sean Hill, it's his fault.
I hear you. If you could spend a day brewing or talking about beer with anybody, who would it be?
Probably be him. I think that's the natural request, is that if I could pick his brain for a bit, I'm sure I could learn a lot from a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I mean, even just at the base level, another farm brewery, like the amount of stuff that I'd be able to talk to them about and relate to, learning from, like they're way ahead of us, like in their, business trajectory, right? So yeah, I think that'd be a cool conversation to have.
I think that would be a really cool conversation to have.
Yeah, I don't know if he'd want to do it. He probably gets a lot of requests to have people talk to him. So
I can imagine he does.
Yeah.
Naomi's curious what your previous academic career was.
So I was a poli-sci guy. So I took criminology and public policy in university, and then I took a master's in political science. So I have a bunch of degrees I don't use, but yeah, basically politics, international security, geopolitics. That was my my main academic hustle. I wrote a lot of stuff in and around like the kind of like Soviet Russia basin of like geopolitics.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Don't start a one-barrel brewery.
But you did.
Yeah, exactly. But good advice. Really good advice.
Yeah, okay. So then what would be the most epic fail that you had besides starting a one-barrel brewery? No, which is not a fail.
Other than that one, which absolutely an epic fail. One of the biggest fails for sure was the new Glycol Loop. So we built, I built almost our entire new brewery as well. So I built our entire loop, which if you've never seen a Glycol Loop, it's like, so anyways, it's 20 feet in the air. It's like on the entire roof. It's about 300 feet of piping, like above, like suspended 20 feet in the air, all insulated and piped up. And then it like feeds like this 2,000 liter glycol basin. And basically I fucked up. There's some rules I didn't follow on expansion and contraction, and the expansion and contraction between hot and cold for plastic and metal are different. And if you go metal into plastic, your plastic fitting will crack. And if you do that, it will just pump all of your glycol onto the floor. And that's what happened to me like 3 days after our first brew on the new system. And when you're putting all that glycol in, like a drum of glycol is about $1,000. And for us to fill that basin is about $2,000. And anyways, I pumped $2,000 on the floor, and then I had to fix that very quickly and hurriedly, and had to spend $2,000 more on glycol. So that was a huge kick in the balls for the first week of brewing. But I learned, well, I knew about it, but anyways, I learned to actually pay attention and never put metal in plastic. Just always put plastic in metal if you're doing a fitting, okay? If anyone's ever doing some piping and you know it's going to get hot and cold, just get a plastic female side and a metal female side and a plastic male side, and you'll be fine.
Those are hard lessons, aren't they?
Yeah, you got to learn them somehow, I guess.
So Mark's curious. Through the Glass was in beer store for a while. He was wondering why you moved away from that.
The big thing is that we never wanted to do the beer store in the first place. The reason we did it is because we got held up getting open on site. So we, like I said, we started in 2017, like we were brewing in 2017, but we didn't actually open like at our bottle shed until 2019. It just took that much longer to get that piece approved. We were able to get our production space going, but we were not able to get like our direct sales essentially going. There was all kinds of like bullshit bureaucracy that we had to fight over, and eventually we got through it, but it just took time to kind of fight with the town over their stupid rules. And the reason we brought the beer store on is because we were just getting a lot of requests like, how do I have your beer at home? And I was just like, you can't. And I was just kind of tired of saying that. I was like, you know what? We can find a way. And, we crunched some numbers. Like the LCBO was an option, but the beer store, it's like basically when we decided we wanted to make that happen, we had beer available in the beer store in 30 days. So not good money or anything like that, but it was a way to just provide people the opportunity to get our beer. We did it once a month, and we posted, hey, beer store deliveries are happening, get it here. And that worked out, well for us. Like we didn't really make any money doing it. Like honestly, we did not make any money, period. Like we didn't really make any money until we opened our bottle shop. As a 1-barrel brewery, if you're selling at the beer store and then selling kegs, like you're just covering costs and doing a lot of work while doing it. So the reason we moved away from it is because of that. It was just, it's not worth your time. It's not worth the money. Even now that we're at, a larger scale, it probably still, that type of beer is just like the beers we make are just, they're so damn expensive to kind of take that extra, 20% haircut from the beer store, the LCBO, whoever it may be that wants like their cut for being the retailer. It's a lot. It really quickly stops being profitable unless you start moving a tremendous amount of volume. And we don't ever intend on doing that. To be honest, we have like a pretty hard cap right now for what we could produce. We only have so much water on site. We only have so much space. We can certainly produce more beer than we do now, but like maybe triple, maybe. So after that, we have to start making some really tough decisions about, where we get our water from. Are we even allowed to take more water from the land? Like there's a lot of weird questions that a lot of breweries don't have to deal with because they're in an industrial area. They turn on the tap, water flows. That's just not how it works here. We have a well, it's shallow. When I turn on the tap, it'll be an empty well in about 75 minutes. So we have to be very, very careful how we take water, where we take water. It's like a slow pull. And yeah. So anyways, what it comes down to is we don't have the volume or desire to do it. So yeah, that's why we're not doing it at the beer store anymore.
I'm going to throw one more question at you.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you'd like everybody to take away from our chat tonight?
I don't know. That's you shouldn't start a 1-barrel brewery. I think Derek got it right there. I think everyone should drink more beer. The more IPA, the better. No, if they want to take away one thing, I think a lot of people, generally speaking, have, if they don't know us personally, have like a different, maybe idea of like what our brewery is and what we do. A lot of people just look at, whatever the type of beer we make or whatever, and they don't actually know that there are humans on the other side of it. So most of the people here, I recognize a lot of these names, which is cool. So you guys probably already know that we're humans on the other side. So I'm not talking to you, but generally speaking, that we're just people trying to do our best to make the best beer we can. And that, people like yourselves that are listening right now are the reason that we have a business, that we're able to do this now full time. And that I was able to turn a hobby into, a full-fledged job that I love doing. It's hard some days, but the fact that you guys continue to drink this beer, and then not only that, sit here and listen to me say words for an hour is pretty cool. Like there's not a lot of jobs that that you can, say you get up in the morning, you go to work, and people are like genuinely excited about what essentially you're doing. Even though you don't need to know about like the day-to-day machinations, it's the end product that you guys get excited about. And yeah, just know that on this side, as the guy who makes the beer, that's the type of thing that gets us through hard days, is that I know that there's people that are excited to actually drink the beer, enjoy the product, interact with it. And that, yeah, it's a privilege to be able to do it.
Troy, thank you for giving us the gift of your time tonight and sharing your story with us. We all truly appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all, Bill. Thanks so much for having me on. Thanks for joining me, everyone. I wish I could stay for a little bit after here, but I'll be honest, I have not slept in like 2 days, so I'm gonna go to sleep.
Troy, thank you. Everybody, next week, hopefully Taylor Robertson gets to join us. What I found out today, that Taylor's actually on Monday starting the final leg of the Miss World Canada pageant. And so she's going to try and join us on Tuesday for the collab beer release with Counterpoint. But Justin, the new brewer at Counterpoint, and Graham will be making an appearance next Tuesday for the release of the collab that I did with them and the collab that Taylor did with them.
Nice. Graham's good peoples.